I always like to let it go through that little guitar solo.
I mean, you did a great job with that. I didn't know you could play that well.
It's pretty good.
So, hey everybody, we're live, and today we are welcoming Dan Levine. Dan Levine is the founder of Engaging Minds, which is a company that I think is now throughout the U.S., but started off locally here in the Boston area for doing tutoring, and particularly executive function-based tutoring. And Dan is also known Jeff and me all of our lives. He is also a twin, so continuing to expand the twinning strategy theme. So Dan, we've invited you here to talk about growing a small business, and you are actually like you're definitely my role model. You started a business way before I did, and I was just wondering, what's the most surprising thing that you have discovered about growing a small business? Like, what did you not at all expect when you started the business?
It's a really good question. First, I want to say that Eric, I couldn't have gotten this off the ground without Eric. Okay, Eric, do you know why?
Because I brought you donuts that one time.
You created our first portal, right, for our families. And that is something that, as an entrepreneur starting out, Eric was incredibly just supportive. Actually, do you remember, I also wanted to do a college interview prep business way back. And you were like, I'll put up flyers for you. Like, you've always been super supportive of small businesses and your friends doing small businesses.
Yeah.
So,
and pushing your brother into doing small businesses.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not Dan's brother.
Not my brother. He's
me. Yeah.
No, and I love that this group is all small business oriented, and I think it's small businesses make an impact, and I think one of the things, I guess, Eric, that has that I guess I've been really pleased with is I went into this thinking, I know what I'm going to do for the next year, right? I got a 1-year lease. We had tested out the model, and I just was like, I know what I'm going to be doing for the next year, and then we'll take it from there. And here we are 14 years later, and that's a very pleasant surprise. And there's lots of bumps and changes and evolutions over time. But that's, I think, one of the things that has been really pleasantly surprising is that I've been able to make a career and a life.
I think it's a really important point. This is something that Eric said to me when I obviously left my big corporate career most recently in October. And one of the things Eric said to me is you kind of got to commit. And to your point, like your commitment was, I got a lease for a year or whatever it was. And so it's like, at some point, I'm just kind of like, I'm not even thinking about, do I go back or whatever. I'm just thinking what I need to make this work. And so I keep tweaking and changing and shifting what I'm working on in order to try and, kind of make it work. So was there any of that in the beginning for you?
Yes. And look, in the beginning, like, you want to be everything to everybody, right? And I think one of the big things that I took out of business school and then through building this business is you got to be really good at what you're doing. And all the extraneous stuff, other people are going to do that, but you gotta kind of find your niche, find your path, and do that exceptionally well. And I do think the commitment to it, Jeff, it's really hard, right? If you've got one foot in, maybe I should be looking, for another job, then you're never going to give this a fair shake. And I was in a different position. I had just gotten married. I had no kids. We downsized our apartment to afford being able to do this. Like, it's different for now. You got like a family and you got older kids, and like there's a lot there. But I agree with you 100%. If you're not all in, it's just not going to go.
So Dan, you're bringing up a very interesting point. You're saying when you start, you try to be everything to everyone, right? And then you find your niche. And the interesting discussion here is that what I see with many startups is that they really are too scared to like narrow down on one thing because there is a lot of business elsewhere, right? So in this continuum, like in case of what happened to you, did you find the niche or did the niche find you? Meaning, was it driven by you or was it driven by the customer?
So in my case, we had a really we had a plan of what we wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was create a tutoring program that was not traditional in the sense that we offer content support, not math tutors, science tutors, language tutors, but to really focus on helping kids learn how to be good students. And that's the executive function skills, how to organize, plan, prioritize, initiate, the writing process, how to study effectively. And so our goal was always that. I was tempted, and I did try some different things. We tried an early readers program twice, thinking, hey, if we can get kids in K and 1 and work on some reading, then they're going to be with us for the longer haul. Neither time did it work. We've had folks ask us to do test prep with their kids. That's a whole different ball of wax. Like that's a whole new system that we'd have to develop. College coaching, whole different system and a way to approach it. So it's always been our goal. And I think I've been very lucky that we've been able to stay in that lane. Because not a lot of
you're known for that lane, engaging minds. I mean, I've talked to teachers around the Boston area, like in Belmont where I live, whatever, who are like, oh yeah, I know engaging minds. Like you're known for your niche in this area. So,
well,
yeah.
and so just to that point, like my kid, we were living in Tennessee, and my kids both, were sort of in a position where they needed some executive function help, and so we reached out to Dan. And fortunately, it was at a period of time where, Dan was already sort of online and able to do that. But it was really helpful for both kids, and so it's great. But like again, it's like we immediately, when we were, to your point about having that niche and being known for something as opposed to being known for everything, it's like we knew who to go to when the problem appeared. And I think there's this great book, I know Eric's read it, I don't know if Elena or Dan have read it, but it's called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution.
Interesting.
It's by a guy named Yuri Levine, who was the founder of
cousin Levine, cousin Yuri.
Yuri.
Uncle.
Yuri was one of the founders of Waze, among other businesses.
Wow.
And he wrote this book, and he really talks about this idea of you have to understand the problem you are solving and essentially modify your product to fit the problem, as opposed to trying to find a solution or take your solution and find a problem that it fits with, because it just doesn't. People don't really work that way, right? They're like, oh, that's really cool. In fact, what they do is they actually say that's really cool, and then they don't buy because they don't have that problem.
I think that's brilliant, and I love that, because you got to identify what the need is out there. And if you know the need and you can offer a solution that works, and it could be a product, it could be a service, but I agree with that. I think that's really fantastic advice for any small business person who wants to kind of get started.
Well, and we actually
productive.
Well, and it's interesting for me because I think I've fallen into the trap, and I'm starting to try to get out of this trap, but I fell into that trap of there's so many things that I can do because I have a career of 20 something years. I won't say the next number, but whatever, a lot of years. And I've done a lot of things. And so I can do strategy, and I can do analytics, and I can do consumer research or whatever. And it's so many things. And what people have said to me is the problem is, Jeff, that people, I think it's really cool to talk to somebody who's like a smart person who's done a lot of things, but they don't hire a smart person who's done a lot of things because they don't have a a lot of things problem. They have some very specific problem. They have a problem that's like, I need somebody that can do search, or I need somebody who can, who can help me with my website or whatever. That's what, especially smaller businesses are looking for, somebody who can solve the problem, and not somebody who's sort of broad and so forth. So I think it's a really important point.
Has that had to shift your thinking about what you're doing now, or what you're trying to build?
Has that shifted my thinking? Absolutely.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, so right now, what I'm getting really focused on right now is, there were a lot of things that I was interested in doing, but what I'm getting really focused on is this idea of helping middle managers become, great at their roles and so forth. And so I'm piloting a course, and I am, working on a book, and all these kinds of things that are all sort of related to that topic. And I just literally, like an hour ago, just like revamped all of the stuff on my LinkedIn, so it all looked the same and was all on that topic. And just sort of trying to say, let's see what happens if I get really, really specific. But it's fascinating as I network with people, when I talk very specifically about this problem first, people totally get the problem, number one. And number two, they're like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. Or like, I talked to somebody yesterday who was like, oh, you should talk to my husband because he does X, Y, and Z, or whatever, because they're starting to go, oh, I know where this person fits in, instead of, oh, well, if I think of something interesting for you to do, I'll give you a call, right? So it's really interesting how that plays out. Obviously I got to figure out how to monetize all this and all that kind of stuff, but it's just interesting to see what happens when I think you narrow down the niche.
So when you, and this isn't like an interview of your business, but I'm just
go for it, like,
please. It's the first time for everything, right? We usually end up interviewing the guest, but no, this time we have a guest interviewer.
I just think what you're doing is really interesting. So, but when you say middle manager, to me, that doesn't say engaging minds. That says I'm looking at like these bigger multi-million-dollar companies that have 500 employees. Right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so I think there's two routes that I'm sort of looking at, and I think the interesting question is, which one's going to really, where's the money and where are the people? There is absolutely no question. Like, for example, I put out a LinkedIn post about 3 weeks ago where I just said, I'm looking for 5 people who are interested in piloting a class on middle management with me. And literally, I think Eric's like my good, like, just do it guy. So I called him up, like, Eric, just talk me through it. And he's like, just hit post. And so I hit
like, there's not that much talking to do here. Just
post. And then we started talking about something else. And while we're talking, first person response, I'm interested. And then within a day, I had like 10 people interested in this thing. And so there's clearly an interest out there, people who are in middle management roles, but feel like they've been sort of abandoned. I think the reality is, though, I think there's an interesting route which says, can I sort of a la Engaging Minds create something where middle managers, could be any size company, but to your point, it's not going to be Engaging Minds. It's going to be, something big enough that there's a middle, right? So you probably have like 100 employees or more, or something like that. But the other route, which is really interesting and that I need to sort of figure out how to tap into, is if I could get tapped into a company where there's 500 middle managers, or I'm working with another former boss of mine on a project where we're actually talking to a college where they have business program and so forth. And so we're looking into whether there's something we could do with them and so forth. So we're trying a bunch of different angles, but always focus on that middle management idea.
So a related question, Dan. So, obviously you said 14 years into this. I can't believe that was 14 years ago. But how did you, so like spinning off of what Jeff was just talking about, how did you build up your clientele? How did you get the word out? How do you get the word out now? Has that changed over time? Like, how do you do all this, especially like now that you're more US focused? Like, how do you get people in like Pennsylvania or something?
So we built for Engaging Minds the goal. Look, we're not inexpensive, right? Form of coaching for kids, right? It's not like getting on Wyzant and getting a tutor for $25. That's not, for math. That's not what we're doing.
Right.
So it's definitely more expensive. And what we figured out pretty early on was people aren't going to look at an ad online and be like, yeah, I'm going to buy Engaging Minds. I'll buy that hat for $15.99, right? Or those sponges look good to me for $9. But buying something like this online, not the way to do it. And we've really built everything, and we've reinvested in our process, in our methodology, in our people. Because if you hire good people that deliver on the product and the service, word of mouth spreads. And that has been, you asked me like the first question was like, one of the biggest surprises. I didn't know how I always believed in word of mouth. When I did admissions and marketing, it was all word of mouth, right? Let's get people out there talking. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how powerful that is when you kind of make it exponential, because now I get calls from Mass General Hospital and Children's Hospital, and I haven't had a ton of like sit downs with their people, but they've heard about us because we really spend time getting to know the kids, meeting their needs, meeting the needs of the parents. They feel good about things. And, reading, Malcolm Gladwell, right? Everyone wants to share the things that they're doing and feeling good about. And so that's really how we've done it. We've also done it then through those referrals. So it's a lot of parent to parent, but it's also professional to parents. So a neuropsychologist might recommend us, a pediatrician might recommend us. And that's how we're trying to break into other parts of the country, is by getting conversations with those people.
Dan, I have a question about something you brought up, slightly different spin on it. You said, if you hire great people that deliver on your product, that brings up something that is a challenge in my business, which is also a fairly small business, hiring good people. When you have a big business, when you have a big company, there is a huge brand behind it, and people know, and good people flock there. Yep. As a small business, nobody knows about you. 14 years ago, nobody knew what you were trying to do. How do you find these good people, and how do you keep them?
Wonderful question. We hire exceedingly carefully in that not every teacher, right, has an affinity towards teaching skills, right? There's a lot of people out there who are great in their content area. That's their joy. That's their excitement. That's what they want to do. They want to share their knowledge and get kids thinking about those things. We're seeking the smaller subset who, that's part of it, but teaching the kids the how behind it. And they've got to have an affinity for teaching that. So one thing is making the right match with your company and your company's needs and the people that you bring in to deliver the product or the service, right? So that's number one. So we hire exceedingly carefully. We go through hundreds of resumes to bring in a class of 5 new instructors, right? So it's really important. But also we know that if we get the right people, families are going to have a good experience. They're going to start telling people, and it's going to extend out. So that's like kind of how we think about reinvesting. We do professional development with our instructors at least a couple times a year. 2 of them are not optional, but then we can offer some optional professional development. And what's hard here is this is a part-time job. So we've got professionals coming to us after school hours and Sundays to work with students one-on-one. And so we have to make it appealing. We pay double what you can make on Wyzant or one of those, or just kind of going on to care.com, right? So, come to us, we find the kids for you. We'll make a smart placement for you. Like, we meet all the kids. We know who our instructors are. We make a good match. So we're kind of setting them up for success in that way. We give them a whole bunch of data and information and things that we want them to be thinking about when working with the kids. And then they get ongoing coaching and support. So our folks don't feel like they're on an island by themselves. We have 2 learning specialists. We're hiring a 3rd. And those people are there. Those learning specialists are there. If look, we have teachers, special educators, SLPs, speech language pathologists, school counselors, social workers. We have adjunct professors. Even professionals still get stuck and need a brainstorm partner. So we're very supportive in that sense as well. So we really do try to make it a great experience and an easy experience for them. And that's how we try to retain folks.
So Dan, you talk about, so that obviously there's the scalability in terms of bringing in the teachers, there's scalability in bringing in the students, et cetera. Do you still find that you're still having trouble scaling the Dan Levine factor? In other words, do you need to still be the person who meets with these, professional referral, the neuropsychologist, whatever it is? Do you still need to be the one to go out to the school system? Or can you actually scale that piece as well? In other words, are you at the point where, I guess we'll call this business development in, where Elena and my area is, but can you scale the business development, or is that still something that you do yourself?
Right now, it's still something I do myself because I enjoy it. And it's the part of this job that I really like. Can't tell I'm passionate about this. Yeah. And I like talking to people. And part of the challenge for me is understanding tell me about your kid, and let me tell you the ways that we're going to be able to help, right? Once they get through that initial process with me, then it's my team. And and that's how we've been able to scale, where I am not involved in parent phone calls and parent conversations. If we need to talk to the school, our learning specialist does that. I don't read the posts anymore that go home. Like, I got a team now that manages that piece of it, and we're going to add one more person so we can lighten the load and even do better at that. It's, for me, one of the big things that we're doing, and I don't think I told you guys this, but we just bought Salesforce, and we're in a 6-month build for Salesforce right now. We're in the midst of it. And it's going to bring EM Chat, Eric. It's going to bring our CRM. It's going to take all of my sales stuff that just takes me time and energy and management. It's going to bring it all into one place. It's a big investment for a small business like mine, for sure. And building it, it makes me a little nervous. Like, how are we going to do this? Is it going to really benefit us? But it's those types of things that are going to. Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better. I really believe that it will, but not only is it going to make it a better experience for our families and for our instructors. They're going to have one place to go to write their posts, to look at the learning profiles, to do their schedule. It's all going to be there. But for me, I'm not great at following up. I think that we can boost enrollment by 5% just by automating parts of it. Right? I don't do well in the follow-up. So at some point, maybe I have to hire another me. And I think that's absolutely on the table. But right now, I've kind of removed myself from the stuff I don't enjoy or that stresses me out. So I'm just doing kind of the bigger picture stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah, I was talking to a woman probably 3 or 4 months ago. I was talking to a woman that I worked with years ago, and she started up her own sort of, I think she does mostly consumer research kind of business or whatever. But she was saying, find your superpower and then do that, and everything else you need to delegate and get off your plate. So I think it's a really interesting. Now, of course, when you're like me, where you like literally you don't even you don't have enough business coming, like I can't delegate anything, I got to do it over time. How do you get that stuff off your plate? I think
no, Jeff, it's because you have too many superpowers. That's
true. I gotta narrow the.
Yeah, you got to narrow them down.
Only X-ray vision.
I'm interested from you guys, because that has been one of the most challenging things for me, is removing myself from the day-to-day so I can focus on the bigger picture stuff. And that's been a challenge that, really the whole time it's been a challenge. And I finally feel like I'm getting to a place but it took a lot of like maneuvering and trying things out.
But was that because you were afraid to like let it go, or is it because you couldn't find people who you could train to do it? Like, how much of that was you getting in the way of other people doing it, and how much was it like, okay, I just needed to find the right people? Or
so it's so interesting that you say that. So you guys know that I've been working with a business coach for a little over a year. And one of the primary reasons that I wanted to work with a coach and that I chose this particular coach, okay, was because I knew that it wasn't necessarily about the business. It is about me getting myself out of my own way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So exactly what you just said, and kind of acknowledging that and understanding those fears and those things that I was nervous about, and then kind of mitigating them in some way, and kind of thinking that through. I feel much better about it than I did 2 years ago. But it takes some time, and it takes a willingness to some flexibility.
Right.
You know, you got to be willing to take a little bit of a risk sometimes.
But I think that, sorry, Jeff. I see a lot of small business owners, and I think by definition, it's a special breed. And it's the people who started owning every single detail, and they grow owning every single detail. And it's very difficult to let go of owning every single detail. And I think it's a very common challenge. So kudos for you for handling it. But I think it's very, very common.
It's interesting on that point, just having been recently in a very large company, is I used to have this saying that I would say to my team, which is our job, I was in marketing. I said, our job is to inspire our employees to deliver the experience we promise to our guests. And in your case, that wouldn't be guests, it would be, students, but this idea of you have to come up with a way of communicating to the people that work for you the ability to deliver your brand without you having to tell them what the brand is every minute.
Have you guys, I don't know if I shared this with you, but Eric, I think you and I have talked about it. Ralph Steyer, did you read Johnsonville Sausage in business school, Jeff? All right, it's one of the best Harvard cases. It blew me away. I read it first year of business school. And basically, Ralph Steyer of Johnsonville Sausage said, we're profitable. I'm making money and I'm happy. We have a good, solid business. However, we get a lot back in quality control, where we got people in our warehouse driving forklifts into the wall. Like we're making money, something doesn't feel right. And so what he did over 10 years, and this has been my inspiration, he basically let go of everything, because what he said was, when we have a meeting, they're sitting around the table wondering what would Ralph want to do in this situation. Right. And he said he needed to give that over to them. One good thing, I was so blown away by this that in my second semester, when we did a leadership class, one of our assignments was to interview and write about a leader that we really appreciated. I got him on the phone. I got him for an hour, and I was like, "Dude, you're my hero!" Like the way I just thought it was brilliant what he did. So I'm going to send that to you guys, so you can read it. It's a wonderful read.
So we're almost up on the half hour, but Dan, I have one more important question before I ask our sort of wrap up question, which is, does your twin brother Maury, does he go rogue and do stuff to like help your business out without asking you in the background? Because that's what I sometimes do with Jeff.
Yeah, no, it's like that was a loaded question.
Yeah, like I have a feeling that Maury has never like gone rogue and like advertised your business on like Google Ads.
No.
Yes, I heard that.
What?
Yeah. Whatever.
It was a very small advertising campaign, Dan. But the thing is that what happened was it started to work, and Jeff was like, "Wait."
Yeah, as long as you paid for it, Eric, that's fine.
I paid for it.
It was awesome. I was enjoying it. Like $10 or something, because I'm like, please stop, because he'd basically be like, what did he say? Jeff's going to give you a free analysis of your sales pitch deck.
For an hour, 1 hour.
For 1 hour, right? And so like in like 20 minutes, there were like 5 people signed up, and like, please make it stop. And then of course,
That's awesome.
I followed up with all these people that, Eric got me, and then none of them actually followed up. So it turned out to be okay, but it was still I was a little freaked out, but anyway.
Yeah. No, listen, you need supporters, right, in your life. Maury wears his Engaging Minds swag, hats all the time. People are like, oh my God, how do you know Engaging Minds? Like my twin brother. Oh, we love, like
Sam Levine is your twin brother.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Exactly. But he's always very supportive in that way. You need people out there who are going to kind of be your ambassadors and just and talk and wear your stuff. And
all right, so we always wrap up with we go around. We usually start with our guests, and just give us the one sort of takeaway message or something you thought was interesting from the discussion. So Dan, why don't you kick us off?
Oh my, first of all, I loved hearing more about what Jeff is thinking. I think that
I need to have coffee with you again or something.
Yes, and if you want, I am always happy.
You don't have to do that stuff live with everybody listening.
But you do, Eric.
That's what Eric would do.
Yeah, right, exactly. Big takeaways for me. I think that the conversation about who you hire and the niche that you need to find, I think those are really important pieces of any successful business. So that's where I'd kind of bring the attention and the focus to is, find your path and then hire great people who can deliver it.
Cool. Jeff, you want to go next?
No, I mean, Dan, it's super helpful having you, psychoanalyze my business. But no, seriously, it's really it's fascinating to see or to understand how you built your business. And I think, there's ways in which what I'm trying to do are actually sort of the adult version of, what you've done with Engaging Mind. And I think it's really helpful to hear
adult clients. That is not. You're the
the grown-up version of Engaging Minds, right?
It's like grown up, not adult.
Sorry, I apologize. Anyway, but it's so it's really, really inspiring to see what you've been able to do, and I'm sitting here. I think your point about finding the niche and also really committing for the first year or whatever it is, I think is really important. So I'll pass it over to Elena.
Yeah, I actually am in the same camp. It was kind of fascinating to me to learn that you just said, I'm just going to try it for 1 year, but I'm going to give it my everything. And I just found it somehow surprising, because it worked, and it worked well.
Thank you. It was a roll of the dice, Elena.
I remember that when you started those. Well, Dan, as I said in the beginning, you're my hero from the starting the business point of view. And but my thing that really kind of resonates with me is this scaling, this question of scaling is definitely something I've struggled with my own business. And I think it's really great that you're like recognizing how important that piece is, to the point that you have, you mentioned you got the coach, you got the your hero is the guy who basically figured this out and did it. Like, I think your business obviously has a niche. It's been great in Boston. You're starting to expand. Like, I think you can make it as big as you want. And so, yeah, it's exciting. Well, thank you all again for a great conversation. Dan, you'd stick around for a second after we end the stream, and we'll just recap. But thank you, everybody, and look forward to the next one.
Dan, if people want to find you on or reach out to Engaging Minds, what's the best way to connect with you?
So through our website is definitely the simplest way, but you can also on LinkedIn. I'm there.
And the website is engagingmindsonline.com.
But if you
it's
type
all one word.
You find it, type Engaging Minds, it should come up. We trademarked the name nationally, so it's ours.
Wow.
Awesome.
Nice.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. I
Bye.
appreciate it.